Okay, so welcome everyone. I can't see you, but I hope that you are all doing well. I wanted to just introduce the evening to you. Our police department, Chief Abrams and Captain Curbelo and their staff have been working very hard to meet the goals and objectives that we've set for them for the year. And I wanted them to take the opportunity tonight to present what has changed thus far and where we are. And that's all I really wanted to say. I really want to turn this over to Councilwoman Foster and the Chief so that they can fill you in on some of the many things that they've been working on. So Elsie, can you take it over? Elsie?
You were breaking up. Mayor, could you just remind folks that if people get on the phone and they're being lewd and rude and disruptive, that could you go through that? Thank you.
Absolutely. So this is an open meeting, and just as I do at our open council meetings, if anyone is becoming abusive or disruptive, I'm going to ask Emma that to turn their mics off, so that this, there's a lot we have to cover, and we don't want any distractions tonight. Thanks, Elsie.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to our Community Police Forum in our third quarter. We've received a lot of questions as usual. We're happy to answer the questions. We're looking forward to presenting to you. Our police department have taken some time and to put your questions to provide answers, and they'll have a presentation that they'll show to you. So we're excited to share with you, and hopefully we'll have enough time after we've answered the questions that we'll have enough time for some Q&A with each and every one of you. Some of the topics tonight will be on promotions, personnel, traffic and pedestrian safety, the new policies, squad personnel, the HPPD community services, as it pertains to suspicious persons, motor vehicles call, EDP calls, use of force training, and notable cases, and of course, frequently asked questions, because that's why you're here. You want to hear how the health of our police department is as it pertains to our community. And they have put together what I believe is a good presentation to share with you, and hopefully get some more constructive criticism from you and some good ideas that we need to work on and we can work on together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. But before I do, I just want to mention that this week, Governor Murphy announced that the New Jersey will provide more opioid treatments, and that can be had at your local pharmacy, Rite Aid. So you can go to Rite Aid from September 24th to the 26th, and they'll be participating in the NORCAM program. So that's really good. Our PD and our first aid squad does carry that, but persons who need it, needs no ID, no prescriptions or what have you, you can go there and can be a lifesaver for those who need it.
Elsie, I just want to add one thing before you introduce the chief and he begins. I also want to explain some of the format. I should have done this before. Harry Glazer, as you can see, is one of our panelists, and he will be asking the questions to the chief that were submitted ahead of time, so that those questions will definitely be asked and answered, and we'll take it from there. This is a program that is an hour and a half long, so we're hoping to wrap everything up at 8:30 tonight. Thanks, Elsie.
And Councilmember Hale is the member of the Public Safety Committee, so he has decided to join us tonight. So with that said, I don't want to take away much time from what needs to be presented, because we have a short period of time in which to answer a lot of questions. So Chief, I'm going to turn it over to you and for you to start the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman Foster. Hello, everyone. Welcome. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rick Abrams. I'm the Chief of Police of Highland Park. Thank you all for attending our third quarterly forum to brief everyone on the updates and the new things that are happening in our police department. Tonight, we prepared a PowerPoint presentation to share that covers a lot of the aspects of the police department that we receive many questions on. We receive a lot of the same questions from different people, so we figured we'd compile a bunch of stuff up front and kind of answer the general questions we receive a lot of. Additionally, we received some specific questions that were submitted ahead of time as we asked, which allows us to provide a well thought out response. Let's do a little research if we need to, so we can give you a better answer than I think, or I'll get back to you. Here is the contact information for the 4 members of the department that are going to be involved tonight, and this slide will be again at the end. So feel free to contact us at those phone numbers or those email addresses. Like I said, this will be at the end again. The questions that were submitted previously at the end of this program are going to be the questions that we received for this one, and some questions were received for the last community forum a few months ago that we didn't get to, that were left off. So there's going to be some answers to those questions as well. So firstly, I'd like to start off with some promotions we've had in our agency. As people are promoted, for example, the captain and I promoted to chief and captain, or from a sergeant to being promoted to lieutenant, and from other sergeants retiring, we had a vacancy that we needed to fill for 2 sergeants' positions. We tried a new process and we were very happy with the results. The promotions were finalized in July. Following this whole new process, we started with a 100-question test written exam that was proctored by the New Jersey State Chiefs of Police Association. Everyone who was eligible and who was interested in being promoted took the test. If they passed the test, they can move to the next phase, which was a thorough review of the personnel records and a series of interviews with police administration. Finally, after those interviews were completed, scores were compiled, and the top 4 candidates were sent for a final interview with the borough's Public Safety Committee, which is a part of the Borough Council. Like I said, this is a new process for Highland Park, and we're excited to do it. In the past, we've had different ways to do promotions for the rank of sergeant. We've now codified it, we've made it a policy, and this is how it's going to be done going forward. Our 2 new sergeants are Sergeant Mohab Hanout and Sergeant David Soden. Mohab came to us from being a special in one of the seashore towns, and he's been with us for 14 years. Patrolman Soden came to us from New Jersey Transit. He's been with us for 13 years. We're very excited to welcome them to the supervisor family. They're both currently assigned to the overnight shift, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. If you see them, please don't hesitate to say hi, welcome them to their new positions, and wish them luck. Since July, they've both done very, very well. So whenever there's movement in the department, it creates a vacancy below. So in addition to promotions, we've also had to hire. Since I've taken over as chief of the Highland Park Police Department, I've overseen the hiring of 6 new officers to replace officers that have either retired, been promoted, or left our agency for other reasons, whether they took a job at someplace else or they decided that they wanted to retire. So the hiring of new officers is probably one of the most important jobs that a police administration can do. When the chief and the captain and the other administrators are retired, the young officers that are starting today are the ones who are going to live the Highland Park Police legacy. They're the ones who are going to drive this department future after we're gone. If we make poor choices in our hiring, we're going to be stuck with a department that might not live up to our expectations. So real quick, a rundown of how we hire, because that's a question we get often. Before being offered a job in the Highland Park Police Department, every candidate has to go through a pretty significant and intrusive process. It starts with an announcement that we're looking to hire someone and a request for resumes and cover letters. So we'll usually receive between 50 and 100 requests to look at interviews for one position. Once those resumes come in, we look at them, we break them down into relevant work experience, if they're already a police officer, if they're not a police officer yet, need the academy. The administration goes over these resumes with a fine-tooth comb, and candidates are selected to advance to the next process, which is an interview with police administration. After that interview, if they're selected to advance again, they go through a background process. It's very extensive. It includes medical and mental health screenings, fitness evaluation. We interview neighbors, family, and their references. We make a home visit to the candidate's residence, and we sit with them and their family in their home and talk to them through their background investigator. If they're an officer in another jurisdiction that is transferring here, so they're an officer, say, in another town in New Jersey or another agency, then we conduct a complete and total review of their entire personnel file. This does include records of discipline and awards. Anything that they've done in their career that's noteworthy will be in that record, in that file. And we'll actually go to their previous employer's agency, and we'll sit down with one of their command staff, and we'll review their personnel file to make sure we are getting the right cop for Highland Park. And that's hugely important, like I said before. The last phase of the hiring process, if they pass their background investigation, again, is an interview with the Borough Council's Public Safety Committee. We ask a series of questions and gauge their answers and responses, and we try to find the officers that are a good fit for our department. And we also want to make sure that Highland Park is a good fit for the officer. We don't want to spend time and resources training, outfitting, and preparing an officer to be a Highland Park police officer for them to then leave and go to another agency if they can help it. And we also want to make sure that they're a good fit. They're going to get through their entire career in Highland Park and serve our residents. Once they've made it through the final interview process with the Public Safety Committee, they still have to do a extensive field training program where they're graded and evaluated every day by the field training officers, and complete a 1-year probationary period. At the end of 1 year, we can tell them if it's not working out that they're not going to be selected to be a permanent member of our agency. So we have a year while they work with us for us to evaluate them continuously and determine whether or not they live up to the standards of Highland Park and they're a good fit for our agency. So these 3 young men you see before you now are our newest hires. On the left is Officer Lewis Middleton. He is a lifelong Highland Park resident and graduate of Highland Park High School. In fact, he played football with one of our other officers, Brian Fitzgerald. And he graduated from the Monmouth County Police Academy in June. It was a long academy process this year due to COVID. There was a lot of stops and starts, so it took him a little longer than usual for him to get out of the academy and get on the road. So he's a little behind. Even though he's senior, he was hired first. He's a little behind some of the other officers because he started later. Officer Roland Sands, he comes to us with a year of law enforcement experience from the Avalon, New Jersey Police Department. And Officer Theo Richards, he comes to us from the East Orange Police Department and had just over 3 years of law enforcement prior to being hired at our agency. All 3 of these officers are in the field training phase of their career, and they're being evaluated every day by field training officers. They're given tasks to do, checklists and requirements that they have to meet. They change squads, they change shifts, they work day shift for a month, night shift for a month, so they get comfortable with all aspects of policing in Highland Park. If you see them out and about, please welcome them and congratulate them on all of their hard work. I'd like to turn it over now to Lieutenant John Suchau. He got promoted a little over a year ago from sergeant to lieutenant. He runs our traffic bureau. If you've ever called for any traffic related matters, whether you were concerned about people driving unsafely on your street or you need no parking signs, any of your requests are handicap parking permits, all those requests that have come through John's office. We have a lot of requests and a lot of demands on our agency due to traffic concerns. So he's got a few topics he wants to talk about that hopefully will help answer some questions that a lot of people have been bringing to us. Give me 1 second, I'm going to switch it over to Lieutenant Suchau.
Thank you, Chief. Hi, everyone. My name is John Suchau. I'm the lieutenant
in charge of the Traffic Bureau. I wanted to give a brief overview of some of my responsibilities related to traffic and also provide information about calls and requests that I get on a regular basis, like the chief had mentioned. Traffic complaints and requests for enforcement, increased enforcement are very common. Any request for additional patrols due to traffic-related issues is going to come from me, come to me from the public. Typically, I like to speak with the resident directly and discuss the details of their complaint. You know, if sometimes we receive calls or complaints through email or Facebook, you know, if I can have contact information. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't advance the slide. No. Other way. I apologize, everyone. There we go. So I like to just talk to the person, see what the problem is. You know, is there complaint specific to at certain times of day, days of the week? Could it be a specific driver or vehicle that's a nuisance in the neighborhood? You know, we've had occasions where, you know, someone gets a new car and they just drive it a little too aggressively for the neighborhood, and you know, just an officer going out and speaking to that person and kind of reminding them that it's a neighborhood and not a racetrack. You know, that it can be handled diplomatically. Before, you know, there are times also when we get complaints where a resident feels that maybe the speed limit is too fast for that roadway. You know, I like to make it clear, you know, that we will do our best to, you know, make sure everyone complies with the speed limit, but that we also need to observe an actual violation in order to stop a vehicle. You know, I think it's important that everybody realize that you know, one of the other reasons or causes for concern is that a lot of people have a misperception of the you know, what 25 miles an hour looks like in a residential area. You know, some roads are small or narrow, some are wider, which really does make a difference in the perception of how fast the vehicle is going. You have a road where there's cars parked on both sides. It's a narrow road. There might be a small alley to get vehicles through. And when a car comes down at, you know, 25 miles an hour, it looks a lot faster than 25 miles an hour on a wider road like South First Avenue. So I like to explain the difference to the residents, you know, that there can be actual misperceptions as far as how fast cars are actually going. Sorry about that. The other thing is, you know, when I was on the road, I always like to, when we would get a notification to conduct a radar detail in a neighborhood, I like to know where that resident lived so that I could set up right in front of their house. You know, I think it's important. I would hope that the person would see the police car out there and know that that was in response to their request and strike up a conversation with them. You know, it would also give me an opportunity to show them what on the radar, what 25 miles an hour looks like, you know, when they get excited and they think that I'm going to pull out and stop this car that just came down the road, and I show them that it's actually just, you know, 23 miles an hour, and, you know, we're not going to go get that one. You know, it does help to clarify some misperceptions. On that subject, in late 2019, the department did acquire a traffic counter radar for use in analyzing our roads and determining where we need increased speed enforcement. Unlike the traditional, you know, trailer mounted side of the road type speed enforcement unit that flashes your speed as you go by, this is, you know, not like that. It's a very small box, nondescript. It doesn't flash your speed. It's mounted to a utility pole, and it collects data on passing vehicles, including their speed and volume of traffic. The unit is typically deployed for a week in response to a request, and it'll remain out there for a week, collect the data,
and help us understand when violations are occurring, including the times of day and days of the week where, these violations are happening most. Once we have that information, we're going to set up details, officers to go out, assign officers to conduct what we call a selective enforcement detail for speeding or, stop sign, whatever the complaint is. And, based on the information that we have, the system will actually tell us peak time of enforcement. So if it's, a roadway that sees rush hour traffic at, between 7 and 9 a.m., and it can actually break it down as far as to tell us which direction the primary violations are taking place in. So it's actually been very helpful. It's gotten a lot of good feedback. When we first obtained this unit, we deployed it to a couple of our main roads, Route 27, Woodbridge Avenue. We were actually really surprised to see how many cars in a week travel down that roadway. So, it was in the area of 110,000 vehicles in a week, coming down these main roads, and it just kind of opened our eyes to realize how much traffic we really do have in this town. Obviously, being a small town, we don't have that many cars, but it was very interesting. Side note on this, when I deploy this camera on more than one occasion, I've been asked, will I get a ticket for going past this thing? It is not like that. It is not a camera. Photo enforcement is not allowable in New Jersey. There's no capability to capture a vehicle specific information through the use of this counter. It is simply a radar that records every vehicle that goes down, the speed, or I should say the data produced by that vehicle, the speed of every vehicle. It can actually tell us the length of the car and the distance between cars traveled if there's heavy traffic. So I know that my information was displayed on the first page. If you have any questions or request for deployment on the street, I believe it's due to go out next on South Adelaide Avenue. And, please feel free to contact me. Real quick on temporary handicap placards, my office handles them. It's very simple to obtain one. The agency has an application, or you can obtain it through the Motor Vehicle Commission website. It's a short application which needs to be filled out by our resident, the applicant, as well as their physician. Once the physician completes that, they can just drop that off to police headquarters along with a check for $4 made out to the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission, and we can process it right away. I will say that the majority of delays are usually on the part of someone's physician. Some people tend to wait until it's too late. If they know that they're going to have a medical procedure done and they're going to need this, they wait until after that to get that up and running. So my recommendation to you is to avoid delay. Try to get out in front of that. And, our turnaround time, if it's not the same day, it's within 1 or 2 days. The temporary placards are good any place in the state of New Jersey. They're valid for 6 months, and they can be extended for an additional 6 months. If you are applying for a permanent handicap placard or license plates, you'd have to go directly to the Motor Vehicle Commission. That doesn't get handled by the local police department. On-street handicap parking spaces, the borough does have an ordinance that allows for up to 2 on-street handicap parking spaces per voting district. So there's 13 voting districts. Under the ordinance, specific criteria needs to be met in order to qualify for an on-street parking space. Upon receipt of an application, an investigation will take place, by me. I'll meet with the applicant. I'll go out to their home, take some pictures, see if they qualify, based on the items described in the ordinance, and I can discuss that with them. If there's ever a question as far as, something might be on the fence, I consult with the Commission for Universal Access, which is right here. Their members have been amazing in helping me kind of guide me in what we're looking for and what the ordinance was designed for. So assuming that someone is approved and there is no waiting list for that voting district, I would make a recommendation, send it to the chief, and he forwards it to the borough council for approval and inclusion in the ordinance. And then after that, the DPW would come out and place a sign there and paint the roadway. On this, I will say that it's important to understand that handicap parking spaces are permitted to be used by anyone with a placard or wheelchair symbol license plates, even if it wasn't the person that requested the spot. It's not reserved for any one person. We've had a couple incidents where, a resident that requested it and uses that stall regularly comes home after shopping locally, and there's another car that has a placard there. And they want the car removed. Unfortunately, we can't do that. New Jersey says that it can be used by anyone with a placard. Again, if you have any questions or need assistance with that, you can absolutely call me at any time. Some of the other things that I do is coordinate special events, roadway closures and detours. In the spring and the fall, we have the Street Fair and Arts Festival. Unfortunately, not this year due to COVID, but I'm sure it will be back. So anything that requires, a road closure, I'm going to be involved with, if it's a state DOT project or occurring on a state roadway, we have to file a permit with DOT. There's an application fee, and we also have to provide a plan of how, we're going to continue to move traffic, even though it's diverted from the original route. We also let emergency services in other towns know that this is going on, so that if there's, say, an ambulance in Edison or someplace coming from east of Highland Park, that they know to go around or go approach the hospitals by way of Route 1 or some other avenue. Okay, crossing guards. My office is in charge of crossing guards training and supervision. Falls under me. During a typical school year, which we have not had, the borough maintains 11 crossing posts and are placed at key points surrounding each of the schools. The crossing guards receive 2 hours of classroom instruction, followed by a minimum of 20 hours of field training before they can be permitted to work independently. This means that they spend 20 hours, and sometimes it's more, but it'll never be less than that 20 hours with another crossing guard and or police officer at an intersection while they're training. I'm very proud of our crossing guards. They handle themselves very diplomatically, and it can be frustrating. People are trying to get to work and school. Sometimes people in the mornings and afternoons are just not the best at driving, and our crossing guards are really good at kind of mitigating a lot of potentially dangerous circumstances. Motor vehicle crash reports, my office handles them for reportable crashes. Non-reportable crashes are approved by the supervisors on the shift. A reportable crash just means that it's there's at least $500 worth of damage or injury to any person involved. I'm sorry. One of the things with our crash data is that we're able to use the information where crashes are taking place, the times of day, the circumstances surrounding the crash, and then we can identify specific areas in town where they're prone to crashes. And we've altered schedules to hopefully reduce the amount of crashes, deploying officers out there. We've been able to use this data to our advantage to show where it's shown that certain violations might be running a stop sign. Obviously there's pedestrian issues are very sensitive in this town. It's definitely a walking community, so we like to be out there and get in front of these problems before they become overly dangerous for our community. But as far as accident reports go, that is how we use some of that data. Another common question: dumpsters and moving pod placement and requests. I get this all the time. Basically, Highland Park does not have an ordinance which prohibits it. When someone calls, I just confirm that they are able to place the unit where it would be legal for a car or another vehicle to park on the roadway. We request that they have DOT tape, and I always recommend placing traffic cones on the outside corners. The dumpsters especially tend to stick out from the curb further than a vehicle would. So, especially at nighttime, we want to make sure that there's no accidents involving these units. If you have any questions, again, you can always give me a call. My office handles record inspections every year. The companies that want to tow for the town have to undergo an investigation. They apply and they pay a fee. We then meet with them, conduct an inspection of their vehicles to make sure that they're registered, insured, and that they're in working order. And we also ensure fee compliance. So all of the towing fees for our towing services, that the town uses, they're set by ordinance. So, if there's ever a dispute over something like that, I'm able to easily go in and hopefully mitigate that. The last thing I'm going to talk about real quick that we get a lot of complaints is on parking. Frequent complaints that we receive are about vehicles that a caller will describe as abandoned or just say that it's been parked there for a long time. Ordinarily, vehicles that are found to be legally parked and registered are not in violation of any existing law or local ordinance. With a few exceptions, there is no ordinance that restricts the amount of time that a vehicle can be parked at one location. However, the borough does maintain an ordinance which prohibits inoperable vehicles from parking on the roadway. Vehicles that appear to be disabled or inoperable, if it's missing parts, missing a bumper, the tires are flat, there's debris underneath the tires, would give an officer a little bit more to investigate and try to reach out and talk to the owner of that car and see what the issue is. And, if they advise us that it's not operable, then, we give them an opportunity to move it off the roadway. Otherwise, it would be ticketed and towed. Another common cause of frustration for our residents is vehicles that park too close to their driveway. We definitely understand the frustration that this causes. An officer can really only take action if the vehicle is physically blocking the driveway. Commonly, we get calls about a vehicle that's parked right up until the very edge of the curb cut. It's sometimes, inadvertent. Other times people just don't care. We try to suggest that people take the neighborly approach and, if it's someone that they know, just kind of explain to them that, it's difficult for me to back out of my driveway. I can't see when your car is parked all the way up there. It does create a hazard. Of course, anytime that there's a vehicle where any portion, even if it's 6 inches over the curb cut, we can definitely address that. Typically, we'll address it in the manner that the person, the complainant wants us to address. So they could say, well, I just want the car moved. I don't want the person to get a ticket, or, maybe you write a ticket. We really kind of leave the ball in their court. Our officers are very agreeable to however the person wants to handle it, and usually we come to a quick resolution. That is what I have on my end. Again, I know that my contact information is on the last slide. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, if I can be of any assistance, I would appreciate you contacting me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much.
They're practicing social distancing, so that's why there's a transition when one person's finished speaking. So just bear with us for a few minutes.
Okay. So thank you, Lieutenant Suchau. That was very thorough. it's a lot of stuff to cover, and it's a lot of the questions that we get on a regular basis regarding traffic. So I was glad you had the opportunity to review all that stuff. What I want to go over now are some of the new policies. Policies are what drives the police department. They are a list and guidelines of what officers can and cannot do. It drives their actions for the most part. They're based in law, but they're also based in the culture of the department and how a department will police its community. Every agency has their own policies, directives that address what their community needs. Creating policies and putting them into effect is an ongoing process. We are moving towards accreditation, and to do that, we have to have policies that cover certain areas whenever we find one lacking. So these are the policies we've been working on for the last few months. First is a policy that covers the recording of police by private individuals. So when you see officers out on the street and there's a situation, a crash scene, an arrest, and members of the public have their phones out and they're taping officers, this guides the officer's reactions to that kind of an act. It covers when a person, an individual that's not an officer, has the right to record or photograph an officer in the course of their duties. It also outlines what an officer can and cannot do if an individual records them. We can't take your phone and say it's evidence. We can't, block you from recording unless it's creating a dangerous situation. If you're getting too close and putting yourself in danger while recording, then an officer can step in and ask you to stop. But this document lets our police officers know where the line is, what they can and can't do regarding the recording. Second, use of force. Traditionally, Highland Park Police Department has used the Attorney General's use of force policy to guide how we handle our uses of force. This year, we drafted a policy specific to us, and it's tailored to help officers better serve our community, not, the same policy for use of force in New Brunswick might be different than Highland Park, might be different than Metuchen, Piscataway, Edison. So we crafted one that lets our officers know what we expect of them with use of force incidents. New Jersey is in the process of refining the use of force policy. They've already put out a portal where now, in the past, it used to be if you had a use of force incident, it went to your superiors signed off on it. They had them send a copy to the county, and the county handed it to the state. There is now an online portal where officers will enter their information in, and it goes directly to the state. So there's better accounting of use of force. What happens, there's a better record of all those incidents. We created a foot pursuit policy. That's something new for Highland Park. In the past, we left it to officers complete discretion on when to chase someone or not chase someone if they're running from the scene of an incident. This policy, again, like the rest, it covers circumstances where an officer can and cannot join in a foot pursuit. It also details what the responsibilities and duties for that officer are if they do engage in a foot pursuit. The reports they have to write, when they would have to stop chasing, if circumstances change and things of that nature. We've created a motor vehicle stop and approach policy. This policy basically just codifies stuff that the officers do already on traffic stops for officer and driver safety, as well as the motoring public that might be driving past a traffic stop that's happening. It just outlines what they have to do and the best way they can do it for officer safety and motorist safety on traffic stops. And finally, the Brady disclosure. So this is a new topic that's been coming up in New Jersey. It's an old law, but it's been reinvigorated lately, where it requires all officers to notify my administration, myself particularly, if there's anything that occurs in their lives that would affect their ability to testify in court as a credible witness. And then if that does happen, there's steps that we have to take to notify the county and set up protocols for that officer as they go forward in their career. So those are the new policies we've been working on. We have a bunch more on the deck and in the pipeline to get written and edited and approved and vetted and put into place so our officers can have their actions guided by support from the department and from the borough. Next, we're going to go over some of our squads and just kind of give you a brief overview of what our patrol division does. And for that, I'm going to invite Captain Curbelo, who's going to to come in and speak about the squads.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for showing up and being here with us. Appreciate you guys all coming out. Try to keep this short, but it's important because these are officers that everybody would see on a daily basis. I understand the chief and captain. You see at public events and public meetings such as these, but these are the officers that are actually responding to calls and that you will see out there, whether there's stopping cars or responding to a 911 call, medical calls, or anything like this. So these are the officers that you're most likely would come into contact with. Each squad is staffed by a supervisor, what we call a sergeant, and has a minimum of 3 patrol officers with them. There are 19 officers currently in our patrol division, which span 4 squads. These squads work 12-hour days, so they'll either work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. We are staffed 24 hours a day, every day of the year. So they're always here. You dial 911, or if you call our main line, these are going to be the officers that respond to you. Just a quick background on the officers. 13 of our officers have been hired within the past 10 years, with 7 of those being hired within the past 2 years. It's a totally new department than it was 10, 15 years ago. And we're continuing to hire and move forward and have a new department. Most of these officers have been hired due to retirements from officers who have since retired or left our department. So this is our day shift squad, A squad, Alpha squad, which is staffed by Sergeant Wiskowski, Patrolman Schiffner, Patrolman Sams, Patrolman Puchaz, and Patrolman Pacheco. These officers here work 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And they are here to serve the public. Our night squad, B squad, which is our night shift. This is Sergeant Soden, Patrolman O'Lara, Patrolman Garrity, and Patrolman Bibby. They work 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Our second patrol squad, which work opposite of the other patrol squad. So they also work 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the other days where the other patrol squad doesn't. Here we have Patrolman Dean, Patrolman Garley, Sergeant Haas, Patrolman Richards, and Patrolman DeCosta. And we have our second night shift, our Patrol Squad D. In this photo, we have Patrolman Fitzgerald, Patrolman Middleton, Patrolman Buttermark, Patrolman Giles, and Sergeant Hanau. These are our officers who are here, again, 24 hours a day. They will be here to respond to your calls. And these are the officers that you will see, walking down the street, walking down Raritan Avenue, hanging out in the park. And, they're the ones that you're going to see more than us. They're the ones who will respond to your calls. And these are the backbone of our police department. So that's just a quick rundown of our patrol squads. I'd like to turn it over to our youth community officer, Brian O'Mara. He's been a police officer, he's in his 14th year, currently serving that position. You'll see him at almost every community event and every school event or anything we can do around town. So if you have any questions, he's the one to contact in regards to that. So I'll be back in a little bit, but here is Officer O'Mara. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian O'Mara. For those of you who don't know me, I've been an officer with Highland Park for since 2007. Of that time, 12 years, I was in the patrol division. Currently, I'm assigned as the youth officer, community policing.
I'm responsible for organizing, setting up community police functions. I'm a bias officer liaison to the religious institutions. And so most importantly, as a youth officer, I'm also charged with dealing with any juveniles that might commit a criminal act or a disorderly persons act. And with that, our main function is we have the Station House Adjustment Program, and that's kind of a diversionary program for any juvenile who might commit a crime. They will have the opportunity. They will have the opportunity to almost a probationary. They'll have to do some community service. Might write a letter of apology, something of that nature to to avoid having a juvenile record. It's a successful program. It's mandatory in the state, and I enjoy being able to help keep these kids on the right path. With that, I'm also crisis intervention team trained in adult and juvenile. I also act as a liaison to the schools in town. I'm a certified school resource officer, certified DARE and lead instructor, which is the law enforcement goes into the schools and we teach about drug education and how to make the right decisions for kids. I'm also a certified police and teens together instructor. This is for teenagers as they reach the driving age. It's kind of a program to go over how to behave on a traffic stop and how the officer is going to behave, and it shows them both sides of it. And it kind of works to bridge the gap to show show them what might be going through an officer's head. And in the same way, we get to speak to the kids and we find out what their thoughts are, what's going through their head. We come away with a better understanding of what we're both thinking. So this last summer, it was obviously with COVID, things were a lot different than what it normally would be for me. I spent the early part helping out the schools with the graduation wave parades. I also had the privilege to lead the graduation parade that traveled through the borough to help the seniors, celebrate this accomplishment. Over the summer, many of our officers and myself included conducted drive-by birthday celebrations. You've seen them on Facebook. After we do it, it gets posted. The next slide here, this is the suicide prevention bike ride. So for the last 3 or 4 years, we've had officers participate in a charity bike ride. This is organized by one of our own residents. It's usually held the Monday after Father's Day, but this year, due to COVID, it was pushed to September 14th. So it was approximately 10 days ago. It was a great night, beautiful night. It was a 10-mile bike ride through Johnson Park. If anyone's looking for more information on that, you can just Google "Depression Doesn't Ride." The organizer is a fantastic young man whom we've gotten to know through the Youth Academy in town. That leads me into the Youth Academy. So in a normal non-COVID summer, the first thing I'd be spending after graduations, I would be planning our Youth Academy. This is a 5-day mock police academy for kids that usually runs the second week of July. It's 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day. We usually get approximately 50 kids who are entering grades 6 through 9. One of our goals is to let the kids get to know the HP officers and to learn what our officers do in town. We also bring in outside agencies in order to show the kids all the different jobs there are in law enforcement. This includes the FBI, DEA, Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office, Middlesex County Corrections. We even get the state police to bring out their helicopter. They'll land it over at the high school for us, show all the cadets, all the stuff that they have on there. This is actually one of my favorite weeks every year, and I'm hoping we can get back to it next year. After the Youth Academy, I kind of move into planning our National Night Out. That's usually held the first Tuesday in August. Last year was my first year in this role, so with the approval of the chief, we changed the event's location and overall feel to kind of make it easier for officers to interact with the members of the community. It was a fun event with we had food trucks, A DJ was there, bounce houses, several community organizations. I think we raffled off a bike. It's another event we're looking forward to hosting in 2021. Also coming up, so looking ahead for this fall, we're going to try something new. We're going to have a few of our officers help coach a flag football team. This is a team that's run through our Highland Park's rec department. The games are played Sunday afternoons up at the high school. So it's going to be Officer Fitzgerald, Officer Middleton, who played together for the Highland Park Owls, and we're standout athletes are going to help me with this. It's an opportunity for our officers to get to know many of the kids in the borough, and for those kids to see a different side of the officers. This can hopefully lead to breaking down the barrier of an officer's uniform and make us all more approachable. After this season, I'm confident we'll be able to expand this program and include more sports and more officers. I'm also in the very early stages of trying to plan an adult police academy that would possibly run in the next year. This, of course, will depend on where we are in the pandemic, but I believe this program could be instrumental in helping to build trust and understanding between both the officers and community members. Finally, I'm hoping that we'll be able to host a responsible, socially distanced trunk or treat. This is dependent on being authorized under the governor's guidelines. We would hope to accomplish this by utilizing multiple parking lots through the borough and have the vehicles socially distanced within them. The beauty of this idea is that it incorporates trick-or-treating and trunk-or-treating together. Families who choose to would be able to bounce from parking lot to parking lot and give them the the feel of actually trick-or-treating. Now, I can't take credit for this idea. A community member reached out to me with this, and hopefully now we'll be able to save Halloween for the kids. So with that, if you guys have any ideas or any thoughts, any way we can improve on community policing, please reach out to me. Some of our best ideas come from you, and we're open to any suggestions. So I thank you for listening to me, and I'll turn it back over to our chief.
Okay. Thank you, Officer O'Mara. He plays a integral part of how our agency is able to be in the community. It's very important. And one of the things he was talking about, asking for community input, is something I'm going to touch on later. As one of the challenges we face as a police department, we truly value the input from the community when we're trying to conduct or come up with ideas for ways that we can engage. So in all seriousness, his email will be in at the end with his contact information. If you do have an idea, or if you do want to speak to him about something with regard to the community, please reach out. What I want to talk about now is the suspicious person, suspicious vehicle calls. This is always a hot topic. Every community forum we've had, this has come up as something. We started in the beginning by training dispatchers to ask more questions to get to the bottom of where these calls are coming from. And I think this graphic kind of shows that we're on the right track a little bit, where we're getting there. So many people in town are concerned about the number of suspicious persons, suspicious vehicle calls that we receive. And these calls aren't generated by the police officer. These calls come to us from a resident who calls headquarters and says, somebody's looking in my car, somebody looks suspicious in the front yard, they're looking in a window, things of that nature. The underlying concern that I hear repeatedly is the possible bias of the caller, that they're only calling because the race of the person in question does not match the race of the majority of the people who live in that community. And that's not a good thing. So through education of our dispatchers and officers that sit on the desk to ask the proper questions to find out what is suspicious, to get to the bottom of what, I understand you're calling me because there's a suspicious person, but what specifically is suspicious about their actions? And then a new protocol that the officers follow when they respond to these calls has helped alleviate a lot of the stigma attached to the suspicious person call, being contacted by a police officer, having their name entered into a computer, things of that nature. So by asking these questions and training the officers appropriately, that has gone down. But more importantly, after our last community forum, where we talked about this problem and we talked to the community and we asked them, please be more aware of your surroundings, be vigilant, but pay attention to what is truly suspicious and isn't suspicious. Pay attention to your community, pay attention to the people who live near you, so you're not calling on a neighbor or somebody who was down the block accidentally. And it seems to be working. Last year, we had a total of 146 suspicious person calls. This year, we're at 110, which is close, but in our third quarter since our last meeting, where in 2019, we had 53 of these calls in that quarter. This year, we're at 22. It's not perfect, and we could do better, but we're doing well. Some of these calls are legitimate, and it's important for the residents to know that they can call the police department for assistance if they truly believe someone is in danger or someone is breaking the law or is about to break the law. We don't want we don't want to discourage residents from calling the police department if they truly feel that something is wrong. But just take a second, check your feelings, and try to come to a conclusion on why this call needs to be made right now. And it seems to be working. We're doing very well. Next, use of force. So we posted online our use of force for the first half of the year in the summer. We just posted our third quarter numbers this morning, I believe. So just a quick comparison of last year to this year. Through the third quarter of this year, we've had a total of 5 instances where officers needed to use force on an individual. 3 of these occurred while officers were effecting an arrest, and in 2 instances, they were the result of preventing an individual who was in crisis from hurting themselves. The level of force used was compliance hold, meaning on all 5 instances, meaning that there was no punches, no kicks, no striking with a baton, no pepper spray. It was just trying to control an individual's arms so they could be placed in handcuffs or restraints to go either to the hospital or to jail. Keep in mind that these 5 uses of force are over the course of a total of about 11,500 calls for service for the whole year, 80 of which ended in arrest. So this is the 2019 numbers. You can see the different quarters there. And if you can compare that, we had a total of 6 uses of force last year. For 2020, we're at 5. We're just finished our third quarter. We're entering our fourth quarter. And that's where we stand for that. So up next, I'm going to invite the captain to come back and talk about the emotionally disturbed person calls that we receive in town. The numbers are on the rise. We're trying to figure it out and come up with some guidance for their officers to help them as they respond to these types of calls.
All right, good evening again. So what I'm going to talk about here is something that we've been monitoring that is very important to us, is calls for service regarding emotionally disturbed individuals, what we call an EDP. EDP for us means emotionally disturbed person. It describes a person with an emotional, mental, or erratic behavior that affects their decision-making process, that may include hurting themselves or hurting other people. So if you take a look at the chart we prepared, and we're comparing the years from 2018, 2019, and 2020 by quarters, just something that came out to us that we are monitoring, that we want to let the public know as well that we're monitoring, is our calls for service regarding EDPs. As you can tell, if you look at the third quarter, you see a gigantic jump in EDPs. Obviously, with everything that's going on now with COVID, people being inside, not being able to get to certain programs, some programs being not being offered or closed in general. We're seeing a lot more contact with EDPs. We're averaging 20.5 in the third quarter, and currently we're already at 60 calls, with EDPs. We're monitoring this and looking to adjust our response, looking at our policies and procedures to see how we can better serve our community and how we can better serve EDPs. These EDPs calls can entail us responding because of a phone call we received, or whether Rutgers Behavioral Health called us, or a counselor called us for a welfare check, or somebody's just having an episode on the street. So this is something that we are monitoring, something that we plan to keep reporting on and letting everybody know where we stand with this. This leads us into training, and something that obviously is the biggest topic for me personally, as I oversee the training, but where we're going. So crisis intervention team training is something that I believe in. My goal here is to have the police department have every officer be trained in this. Currently, we're at 41% of the officers. This is a minimum of 40-hour week intensive training. However, it's only given twice a year, so it's very difficult to get officers there. Obviously, it's been canceled for this year, so we haven't been able to get officers there. The crisis intervention training, in my opinion, is one of the best trainings I've ever attended. It gives you a real hands-on knowledge and how to help people who are going through some type of crisis. You actually work with individuals who have what they would term themselves as an EDP, and how they think we should go about helping them. And it's a phenomenal course, and again, something that we're trying to have all of our officers trained in. All of our supervisors have been trained in this. The most important thing is that when we do get these calls, that our supervisors show up and can control the situation for our officers. So with all these EDP calls going up, we're adding additional training to assist our officers and to better serve our community. For example, the crisis intervention team training, de-escalation. We're also sending all of our supervisors, which they've never been sent before prior to our administration, to applied leadership principles, high impact supervision. We're also sending our officers to mental health first aid. And we're also changing how officers are thought of, the new way of thinking, as officers should think of themselves as a guardian. So you have the ethical protector, where officers are taught to be guardians, which is the way that officers should be moving forward. Multiculturalism and policing, understanding implicit and explicit bias, which all of our officers have been trained in. We also sent officers to harm training, which is helping, again, another type of crisis intervention training to be able to help individuals in crisis. We're also, response strategies and tactics to missing children is always something that unfortunately that we deal with, and looking to improve the way that we respond to that. Verbal judo, again, is just about how we are able to de-escalate a situation. And that is always our goal, is to use de-escalation whenever we're dealing with a high stress situation. And resiliency officers. So the AG has mandated that every department have resiliency officers. This is a big topic where officers not necessarily dealing with stress well, or not knowing that what outlets they have if they do deal with a traumatic situation. And these officers work amongst their coworkers and are there to help them. So that is a big deal. And again, it's mandated by the AG, and it's a big training that our officers are taking part in. Like to jump from training. That's not all the training we're doing. COVID has really hampered this, really half of this year with our training. Trainings are slowly starting to open up. We've tried to find anything we could, whether they're live webinars or now some of the police trainings are coming back that we can have in-person training. But those are some of the trainings that we're doing, and we're always looking for more. We're always looking to adapt to the new requirements from the state AG, and we're always looking to have diverse training. It's not one set area of expertise for our officers, since we respond to so many varied calls. Which leads us to some of the notable cases that our officers have been involved with for third quarter. Recently, we've had officers on 2 separate calls save 2 lives of residents using CPR and their AED. Our officers were able to, responding to investigate an individual with a gun and remove the weapon from the individual using the de-escalation techniques that they were trained with, and no use of force was required. We've also had officers help prevent a suicide, and those officers were also trained in crisis intervention. So they're using the training that we are sending them to, and we're able to see it up close and personal and see that it is working. We also had another individual where an officer had another weapon, and the officer was able to use these de-escalation techniques and talk to the individual and calm the situation down. And again, where no use of force had to be used, and we were able to handle the situation. A couple other things that are going on that are of importance as well. We did recently have the actor identified and arrested by our detective bureau for trying to lure 2 juveniles on Woodbridge Avenue. If you follow our Facebook page, you saw all the information going out there, and it was an excellent investigation by our detective bureau and our patrol officers were on scene. We recently also, our patrol officers responded to a call for service in the borough where a resident was reporting that their car was burglarized, and during the course of the investigation, the officers found the actor's cell phone inside the vehicle. They left their cell phone inside the vehicle, and they were able to conduct an investigation and then make an arrest out of that. Our detectives are still investigating the assault that happened on South 2nd. If you have any information regarding that, please contact our detective bureau. You can contact me or the detective bureau. There's information regarding the assault on our Facebook page. Another of note is our officers who, again, they were on foot. They were walking the avenue around 1:45 a.m. and they found that somebody had attempted to break into a business, and due to their walking around, they were able to find this and stop anything from going on. The investigation is ongoing, and if you have any information about that, you could call us. Real quick, before we get into the questions that were sent in, these are always questions that we hear, that we see, whether I see on social media or I receive by email or phone calls. I do try to respond to everybody in a timely manner. It doesn't always happen, unfortunately. I do get quite busy, but I honestly try to answer every single email I get. So I just want to clarify a little things. We don't own a boat. We do, if we ever need a boat, we do ask for New Brunswick for their assistance. New Brunswick is kind enough to, also help us during our Youth Police Academy, where they bring their boat as well. But we do not own a boat. We don't have any armored vehicles. I know some people had asked, and I had received emails about that and phone calls. We don't have any armored vehicles, just standard police vehicles. The only armored vehicles that have been around here is when we do our youth police academy, and we have other jurisdictions come out and they show what they have. We also don't use CS or tear gas. We don't own it. We don't equip our officers with it. We don't train with it. It's just not something that we do here or advocate for. Always, and you can see it on the patrol officers outside or the detectives. All our officers are always wearing body cameras. So they're whether if I walk outside the building, I'll have a body camera on as well. Every officer in the department is assigned a body camera, and they walk, or as soon as they leave the building, they have that body camera on. And we have a strict policy on it, and everybody must adhere to that policy. So whether you're a patrol officer responding to calls, or your administration, such as myself or a detective bureau, you're going to have a body camera. Also, I did recently get a few questions about facial recognition software. We don't have it, we don't use it, and it's not something that we've ever looked at or really gotten into. That is not something that we have a capacity at this level. So those are just some of the quick, frequently asked questions that I wanted to make sure that we got out there, that we were able to discuss. Again, you can always send me questions or email via email. You can call me, you can send us on social media, and I'll try to get back to you as fast as possible. Sometimes, I try to research the questions as best we can, so I don't have to tell you, hold on, I'll get back to you. I like to give everybody a very thorough response. So it's not, no, we don't own a boat. Yeah, we don't own a boat, but if we do need a boat, we call New Brunswick. Thank you very much for all those questions. And I'm going to turn it over to the chief, who is going to start with the questions that we received from the public, and go from there. Once again, Captain Jose Curbelo with the Highland Park Police Department. My contact information is at the end. You can also reach me on Facebook with the same, Captain Jose Curbelo, or you can reach me at Highland Park Police Department at Facebook. So thank you very much, and here's the chief.
Okay. We're going to get to the questions now. These are questions that were previously submitted by attendees to the community forum. I'm not sure exactly how many we have. We are at 8:15. We'll get through the questions, even if it takes a little bit longer. I'll make sure we answer all the questions that we have submitted and have answers for prepared. So, Harry, I think you're going to be reading the questions out.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, our first question is, what training do officers and administrators receive in handling interactions with the public in a racially sensitive manner?
So we talked about training a lot on this forum. We harp on it at most of the forums because the training gives the officers a basis for decision making. All of our officers, from the newest hire all the way up to myself as the chief of the agency, attend training on those topics, on bias topics. For example, in the last year, we've done police professionalism, cultural diversity training, bias-free policing, CLEAR Institute training. CLEAR stands for Community Law Enforcement Affirmative Relations. And that is actually an institute that was put up by the state, and it's mandatory training from the state AG's office that every officer has to attend a certain number of hours of CLEAR credits, which help the officer relate to different segments of the community, introduce us to different cultures, and help us connect to them as we do our jobs. These trainings aren't just one and done. They're ongoing. They're mandatory every year for all of our officers. That doesn't mean to say the same officer goes to the exact same school every time, because of course that, you go to the school once, you go next time, you think you know it, you turn your brain off. So we pick and choose different institutions to offer these trainings to our officers and keep it fresh. So every time you go, you learn something new. It keeps it fresh in the officer's mind, and it enhances their training. You've heard it a lot. You're probably sick of it, but due to COVID, a lot of our training this year has been virtual, not in person like we prefer. Hopefully, if the COVID restrictions lessen and we are able to get to more in-person classes, we will, but we will make do with the virtual training whenever we can.
Okay. How does the Highland Park Police Department choose whom they stop for traffic violations, citations, and other issues?
So officers in patrol that are conducting motor vehicle stops, they base their decision on what cars to stop entirely by observing violations of the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Code. If we can't just stop cars for no reason at all, the officer has to actually witness a violation. Even if someone calls and says, hey, I just saw a white Nissan ABC 123 New Jersey license plate run a stop sign, and we find that car, we can't stop them and issue them a summons for the violation of running a stop sign because the officer did not witness it. So the cars that you see stopped on the side of the road by Highland Park Police have all committed some infraction that the officer observed, whether that's a physical infraction of running a stop sign or speeding. It could be a procedural infraction, such as their registration is suspended or expired, or it could be part of a criminal investigation, such as a be on the lookout. So we'll get a report that there was a car with a license plate that was involved in a crime. That's the only time we can stop the car for not witnessing a violation. We can actually stop it because they're that vehicle is specifically named as being wanted by another agency for committing a crime.
Do you have an official policy about profiling? What kind of training do police get on this matter? And is this training ongoing for veteran officers?
So yes, we have the bias-free policing policy that guides the actions of all of our officers on every interaction that they have with the public, as far as being bias-free, as it says. If you're interested to read it, it is actually up on the borough website. If you go to hpborough.com and you go to Departments, Police, Policy, you'll see that policy is posted there for everyone to look at. We're trying to get more policies out to the public, and then this is where we're going to put them. This is the first one we've actually put out there for everyone to see. It's based on Newark PD's policy, which is under consent decree, and then we took that policy and we adjusted it and tailored it to meet Highland Park's needs for our community. As far as the training, our officers are all trained on our policies, of course. They have to read our policies, sign off that they understand them, and are trained by their supervisors. And this is from the newest hire, again, all the way up to myself. Additionally, we attend those trainings that I mentioned before, the police professionalism, bias-free policing, cultural diversity, the CLEAR training, again, and those trainings all touch on the parts of the policy that we have in there for to promote all of our actions being bias-free. Is this training ongoing for veteran officers? Absolutely. As I said, all officers are mandated to attend these trainings. They're repeated annually for the officers, and it's everyone from the newest hire, our brand new recruit, all the way up to the chief of police. We all have to attend these trainings.
Okay. What areas have you identified as needing improvement in building relations between residents of color in Highland Park and the police department?
So the biggest obstacle that we have found is community outreach and community engagement. They're always difficult, and that's part of the responsibilities that we're tasking Officer Amara, a community officer, with. And one of the reasons why we honestly say we want to hear from the community. We would like you to reach out to us and tell us ways we can do things a little bit better, or tell us that we're doing things a little bit poorly. Offer suggestions, give us ideas. We get stuck in a box sometimes where we think of things only a certain way. It's nice to hear outside opinions. It's nice to hear opinions from people who aren't police officers that look at the world maybe a little different than we will. It's very refreshing, and it's usually eye-opening for us. Um, it's difficult to find mutual time and opportunity to reliably communicate with everyone in town all the time. Everyone has different schedules, work, school, family obligations. The police department is always here, but it's not always the same officers all the time. It makes it hard sometimes to build those kind of relationships. We need to do a better job reaching out, and I'm asking the community to increase their reach to us. We do have some residents in town. They come to us with some excellent ideas. Officer Mara talked about a resident in town that had some ideas to make trunk or treat. If we can pull that off this year, fingers crossed, for the kids in town to trick or treat. We've had other residents in town who stop in regularly and meet with the captain and I and tell us, hey, we like this. Hey, we don't do this. Hey, don't, that's not a good idea. We don't like that. It kind of helps guide and shape some of our actions, and it's very, very, very helpful. So that's where we need the improvement. We need better communication and outreach between the community and the department.
Okay. What are the absolute essential requirements to become a police officer in Highland Park?
So I talked about this a little bit when we went over the new hiring for our 3 new officers, but all candidates must possess a high school or GED equivalent. That's the bottom line for education. Higher degrees, of course, are given better preference, but it's not a requirement. But when I say better preference, I mean as we go through resumes and their hiring process, that might give them a couple more points towards being asked to come in for an interview. All officers must possess a valid New Jersey driver's license and be a current New Jersey resident. You can't be a New Jersey police officer if you don't live in the state. All officers must have graduated from the police academy with a basic police officer certificate. We do sometimes hire someone who has a special police certificate, but once they come here, we'll send them back to the academy to complete and convert their special certificate to a basic police officer certificate. We've done that with a few officers that we've taken from other agencies. If they have a certificate, then they must be selected for hiring following the conclusion of that hiring process I talked about before, which starts with a resume, and from the resume, it goes to an interview. From an interview, it goes to an application and background investigation. From there, it goes to an interview with the Borough Council, and then ultimately, they have to complete our field training, where they're graded every day, and they're evaluated every day by their field training officer, and they have to complete a 1-year probationary period after they're being evaluated, and we like their performance, we agree with the things that they do, we trust their judgment, and then we can offer them that, then they move into that full-time position. So those are the basic requirements to be a police officer in Highland Park.
Okay. How is the HPPD leadership sure that the older officers are not damaged by old-time racist attitudes?
So it's a hard thing to measure. What we have found is the trainings, effective training, and doing it continually, coupled with proper supervision and accountability, lets us know that our officers are doing the right thing for the right reasons all the time. As we said before, all officers are trained in bias-free policing, cultural diversity, police professionalism, so they know what the right thing to do is. They understand, beyond just human decency and not being a racist, they understand what's expected of them professionally as police officers to treat everyone in a fair and equal manner. Now, we talked about all the officers having body cams. So every officer's body camera footage is reviewed. Not every single call they go to, but the supervisors review their officers' body cameras. And the sergeant's body cameras footage is reviewed by the lieutenants, and the lieutenants by the captain, and up and up and up. So if you're interacting with the public, we watch these body cams, and we will see how each officer interacts with the public, and that will give us a clue to how they feel, how they act, how they treat people, because they don't know which videos we're going to watch. They don't know, and we haven't had any problems with this. We can track complaints that come in for preferential treatment from the community. If you interact with a police officer and you believe that the officer treated you with less than equal respect or treatment than they would anyone else, and that's based on your race, the color of your skin, who you worship, things of that nature, then you can make a complaint, and those complaints are obviously tracked and compiled, and we can follow it that way as well. The complaint process that's in place has been there for a long time before I became chief. The reviewing of the body cams is something that I implemented. It's new, and it's working very well. It's letting us know, little corrections we can make to our training, little corrections we can make notifications and things of that nature. But we haven't identified any racist attitudes or racist acts on the part of any of our police officers, regardless if they're brand new or they've been here for years.
I think you went back.
Wrong button. Yep, there we go.
Before I go on, Mayor, we're hitting the 1.5 hour mark, or are we going to extend it a while?
So I would like to get through all the questions that were submitted ahead of time, because people took the time to submit them. I'm going to ask that you all stick around so that we can get to those questions. Thank you, Harry.
Sure. Okay. Chief, the next question, what is the new 911 law?
So a couple of weeks ago, the governor signed into law the statute, which is here on the screen. Basically, it holds a person accountable if they call 911 simply for the purpose to intimidate or harass someone based on, as you can see here, the race, color, religion, gender, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, national origin, or ethnicity. Bottom line is, if you're calling the police on someone who's in your neighborhood day or night, simply because for the fact that you don't think they belong there based on the color of their skin, or you don't like them based on who they worship or where you think they come from, then you can be charged with a criminal act. I believe it's a third-degree crime, which is pretty serious. It's brand new. It hasn't been tried yet or used yet. We haven't gotten any guidance from the AG or the prosecutor's office on how we can prove that that's why the person called, but it's there. It's a tool in our toolbox we can use. And if the officer truly believes that that's why this person called, we are able to charge that individual with this crime. It falls under our disorderly persons and bias laws. Like I said, it's new. Everyone's aware of it. Our officers are aware of it. Our dispatchers are aware of it. It doesn't change the way we've been trained so far. We haven't received new training on the law other than what the law actually is. But as we go forward, I'll keep everyone informed, because I've received a lot of questions about what this law is and how it works.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so real quick, Harry, these are some questions that came to us late from the last open community meeting. That question that I just finished was the last one that was submitted for this one. So these are questions that were submitted by people from the last community forum. I hope that they are watching now to get the answers to their questions. But in any event, they're good questions, and I think they should be addressed.
Okay. The bias-free policing policy posted on the HPPD's Facebook page states that the purpose is to ensure that when a citizen encounters Highland Park Police Department, they will receive treatment free of bias. So first question is use of the word when. If non-white people are stopped more often in traffic controls, how will this policy address that? So
there are other policies that discuss motor vehicle stops. We talked about that before. Reasons for legal traffic stops. No officer is permitted to conduct any stop on any individual simply on the basis of age, race, color, ethnic background. The same categories that fall under that law we talked about a minute ago. Any member who is found doing that is subject to discipline, including counseling, mediation, or new training, as set forth in our police department's rules and regs. This is a new policy by us, this bias-free policy that I implemented relatively soon after coming in. We worked with the Equity Commission, and we worked with, I think it was just the Equity Commission, on the wording in this policy, and went back and forth with them a couple times to make edits and changes. So the community had some hand in this policy. It's a good policy standing by itself. It's not enough, but when combined with the other policies that we have in place that guide our officers' actions, it does a very good job of making sure our officers do what they're supposed to do.
Okay, thank you. Second question looks at the use of the word citizen, and the questioner asks, does the policy apply to non-residents as well?
So historically, when the police use citizen, they just mean people who aren't police. That has changed recently with some of the hot topics of immigration reform and things of that nature. Originally, when we used that word in the policy, we just meant to separate people who aren't police from police. When we first brought this policy in its completed form to the Equity Commission, they said, hey, well, that's, what do you mean? And we realized that is confusing and it's not right. So we made an effort to go through our policies and change the word citizen to individual or person, wherever we could. If it is still saying citizen in there, that is an oversight, and I thank you for bringing it to our attention. Since we did receive this question, we did review that policy. We did find where it said citizen. We did remove that word and re-release that policy. So that word is no longer in there.
Great, thank you. Third question. The policy says that Highland Park Police Department members that violate the policy will be subject to disciplinary actions such as counseling, mediation, and training. Would biased policing ever be grounds for firing that officer? And if so, what degree of bias would that entail?
Absolutely. An incident of biased policing could be grounds for termination. Not always. It's hard to put a measurement on a degree of bias. It's going to fall under the totality of the circumstances if it leads to the point of termination. But any discipline resulting from any verified instance of bias-based policing, as I said, depends on the total circumstances involved with the incident. We would refer this to our legal counsel for the borough attorney, labor attorney, things like that, and talk to the Public Safety Committee and the Borough Council to determine if termination was appropriate for whatever violation of the policy or violation of this person's rights were. So every situation is different. I can't give you a concrete answer on a line in the sand that says, this person is terminated and this person isn't. Just that it's a totality of the circumstances that is, discussed with police leadership, borough leadership, and legal representation before we make that kind of a choice.
Okay, thank you. Next up. How is the Attorney General's Directive 2018-3 early warning system implemented in Highland Park?
We have a software called Guardian Tracking System. Everything that happens to an officer, whether it's being noted for something good or an IA complaint or any of the other enumerated offenses that are in the directive from the Attorney General, are tracked in that Guardian tracking system. It's automated. If 3 events happen within a year, as the policy states, it trips a flag and it sends an email to myself and my internal affairs officer, professional standards officer, and it lets us open an investigation onto what tripped the flag and what the circumstances are there. The software has been very useful. It's easy to go in and look at someone's file and see where they're standing, where they're at. And it's nice to track the awards as well as deficiencies. But that's how we track it. That's how we follow AG Directive 2018-3.
Okay, thank you. What systems are in place to make sure that members of the Highland Park Police Department understand, incorporate, and retain the training they receive? For example, in a case where a bias culture is prominent, training may not help as members disregard the training and may encourage others to disregard it as well.
So we need to continue with our yearly training and review all the data, motor vehicle stops, use of force, and any metric we can to see what is working, what is not working. We're constantly evaluating our officers compared to what we expect from them and what we train them on. Like I said, we added the additional accountability of reviewing the body-worn cameras, as well as we review all the arrest reports, use of force videos, all that documentation. Previously, these review processes were not routinely done. when I took over, this is something that I instituted, and with the help of the captain and the patrol lieutenant, and it's working. But that's how we make sure things are going the right way. The officers know that we are reviewing their work, that we're keeping an eye on them, that we're watching their body camera footage, that we're reviewing their reports, and making sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do and holding them accountable when they don't. That's the big mark there at the end. At the end of the day, all of the review in the world doesn't matter if you don't hold them accountable.
Right. Thank you. So in a case where bias culture is prominent, how would bias incidents become known to supervisors if many officers share the same views and are reluctant to report one another?
So again, this is where the body cameras shine. All officers wear them. They have to have them on by policy and recording when they're interacting with members of the public. And this footage is reviewed. If they do something that's unprofessional, if they do something that goes against policy, if they do something that goes against human decency, a supervisor is going to see it. It's not the way it used to be, where you can push things under the rug. We have these cameras for a reason. They've been very helpful. They've been allowing us to hold our officers accountable when they do make mistakes, and they provide excellent training for officers when they do the right thing, where we can actually show some of the body cam footage and say, hey, look, officer so-and-so did this on this call, and they did a very, very good job. And this is what right looks like. And they've become a great training tool as well. So continuous training also helps, constantly refreshing in the officers' minds what right is, what we expect of them. Having an open door policy. So if an officer is uncomfortable going to someone to make a correction or something that they observed that they weren't sure about, and they think it might be skirting the line or even crossing the line of being improper, there's an open door policy. They can come see the captain or myself or their lieutenant if they need to. We stay on top of our internal affairs and professional standards investigations, and we have all our policies that require officers to report all bias incidents that they witness by their officers. So if they see it and they don't do anything about it, they're just as guilty as if they did it themselves, and we hold them to the same standard.
Okay. Right. All right. 5 years ago, the Minneapolis police started to implement trainings on implicit bias, mindfulness, de-escalation, and crisis intervention. They diversified the department's leadership. They created tighter use of force standards, adopted body cameras, initiated a series of police community dialogues, and enhanced early warning systems to identify problem officers. None of it worked. What is Highland Park Police Department learning from the Minneapolis Police Department's case, and how is that implemented in Highland Park Police Department's attempts to eliminate biased police?
So the whole world is learning from Minneapolis and what happened there. We're still trying to adapt to how all those things that agency did were able to end up in what happened. So what we're doing now, we've been doing all along, is we look at agencies that have had success changing their police department at a fundamental level. For example, Camden, New Jersey. We believe strongly in our community-oriented policing model. Our officers are involved more in community events. You heard Officer Mara talk about all the things we're trying to do in the community. The newest thing is, last year we started Trunk or Treat. We're trying to do that again this year. We'll see. But now we have officers participating in Highland Park recreation events with flag football. That's huge for us. That is completely new, and I'm excited to see our officers do that. We have officers that signed up borough committees. We started a park walk and talk and bike officers that ride. I don't know if you saw yesterday. Officer Pacheco was out riding the mountain bike all over town all day yesterday. We do park walk and talks where officers will park their car on the avenue or in the park, and they'll get out and they'll talk to people and interact, go into shops, say hello, just kind of talk to people, get to know the community that they're a part of now. We encourage that strongly. An officer's not going to get in trouble for stepping out and taking a 20-minute coffee break and talking to residents if there's nothing else going on and they have the time to do it. We want that. We want people to know our officers, names and faces and feel comfortable around them when they call them for help. On the other side, from the admin side, we've increased training, oversight, and accountability through all the methods that I mentioned before, with body cam footage, reviewing of events and reports. And we continue to monitor these things and try to track data as best we can. This is an ongoing learning process. We're not always going to get it right, but we're doing pretty good. I think we've done a good job in the year and few months that I've been chief. We will not be static in this at all. We're going to continue to try to find new ways to train our officers and observe our officers and make sure that the people of Highland Park have the best police force that they can.
Okay. Why is there such a focus on training, use of force policies, and diversity on the force when the experiences of communities around the country, not to mention academic studies, have proven that these are not enough? As to training, is it true that the Highland Park Police Department did not use its full training budget before this budget was raised? If so, this seems like an unnecessary and reckless expense.
So our 2019 training budget was used in full in its entirety. With 2020, our training budget has not been used in its fullest due to COVID. A lot of the trainings we had officers scheduled to go to were canceled, rescheduled for next year, postponed indefinitely, things of that nature. So it's been a struggle to find all of the trainings that we want to send our officers to. But the focus on our training is not solely on use of force policies, diversity, or bias. They're just some of them. We have other requirements that we have to do by the state. We have other requirements that officers need based for continuing credits for different specialties that they have. So officers attend many trainings, not just diversity, use of force, and things like that. As far as the focus on the training and the policies, that's the foundation that the officers have to build from. The training doesn't teach you to be the best cop in the world. It teaches you what the minimum accepted standards are, and then the officers have to take those and apply them to their professional career and apply them in a way that lets them be the best officer they can be for the community that they serve. I understand that there's some academic studies that mention that, those kind of things aren't enough, but without that, we have nothing else. So we take what we have, we do what we can, and then we monitor and we watch and we make changes as we need to.
Okay. In terms of the budget, is my understanding that the Highland Park Police Department has a boat. Is this correct? If so, how much does the upkeep, staffing, and fuel for this boat cost taxpayers every year? When was the last serious aquatic crime on the Raton River that this boat was used to address? Why is this deemed as necessary, especially given that there's a Coast Guard station just down the river in Sayreville?
So as the captain said, we don't have a boat, so it takes no staffing, fuel, taxpayer money, anything of the sort. If we did have an emergency where we needed a boat, we have New Brunswick, there's the Coast Guard, there's the New Jersey State Police Marine Unit. We have other resources to use for that kind of a situation. But we haven't had a boat as long as I've been here, since 2003. So I don't know where that idea comes from, but that's not true.
Okay. Pepper spray, aka CS gas, is banned for use by armed forces by the 1993 Chemical Weapons Convention and the Geneva Protocol. The U.S. is a signatory to this international convention. Why is it appropriate to use a chemical agent banned on the battlefield against civilians? Chief Abrams, would you commit today to stop the use of CS pepper spray by the Highland Park Police Department going forward?
So, no, we don't use CS gas, which is a manufactured chemical. We don't use it in any form. We're not equipped to deploy it. We're not equipped to protect our own officers from it. It's just something we don't have. Our officers are issued oleoresin capsicum, or OC spray, or most people call it pepper spray. It's a natural substance. The active compound is a chemical capsaicin, which is when you eat a hot pepper, that burning sensation on your mouth and lips, it's that chemical. When sprayed into the air, it makes your eyes water, it makes your lips burn, it makes your nose run, and it's disorienting. And that's the reason why we use it. Now, as far as committing to stopping the use and the issuing of pepper spray to my officers, I'm not going to do that. It's a product that any individual in New Jersey can legally buy and carry as a self-defense tool. I'm not going to take that option off the table for my officers when it's currently legal and accepted and appropriate for anyone to use in self-defense. We are not the military. We are not on a battlefield. I'm aware of the 1993 Chemical Weapons Convention and the Geneva Protocol. I know what this person is asking about, but it doesn't apply. He's right. We're not on a battlefield. So since we're not on a battlefield, those things are different. This is appropriate for our use.
Okay. In a previous police forum, a mother told a heartfelt and heartbreaking story about her son being hassled and detained for hours at the station without charge by the police. Captain Curbelo's response to this was to point out he knew the young man, apparently from his time as the school's officer, and he proceeded to publicly expose the teenager's private juvenile record without addressing the allegations of wrongdoing on the part of the Highland Park Police Department staff at all. Captain Curbelo, Chief Abrams, and Mayor Brill-Mittler, why has there not been any mention of this or an apology given to the community for this illegal and shocking behavior on the part of the Highland Park Police Department leadership?
So the incident that was referred to at that meeting did not involve a juvenile. It involved an adult. The adult was properly arrested for another crime unrelated to the bicycle incident. I'm not going to go any further into it than that. That's the end of it.
Okay. In 2016, 4 members of the Highland Park Police Department used force against Daniel Nagahama, who was later pronounced dead at the hospital. Over a year later, only after a lawsuit against the county, dashcam footage was released showing Daniel Nagahama walking around and speaking with officers, then the officers arresting and using force, including a chemical agent, against him for 5 to 10 minutes as he screamed in pain, and finally him being taken away in a stretcher. Chief Abrams, even though this was before your promotion to chief, have you watched this footage? And if so, what is your opinion that the officers involved, including Patrolman O'Mara, who is now the department's youth officer, acted appropriately? Mayor Brill-Mittler, since this happened during your tenure and with the hindsight of the nationwide movement, what is your current view of the actions of the 4 officers in that footage?
Mr. Nagahama was never arrested, and this incident was investigated by the county prosecutor's office. There was a finding by them that our officers did nothing wrong concerning that incident. The individual did not die as a result of any officer's use of force. In fact, he died at the hospital hours after all police involvement concluded. There's nothing more to say from the police department standpoint on that.
Okay. And I'm thinking we're done with questions.
So that's the end of the questions. On our screen now, you can see contact information. Leave it on the screen while I finish talking if you want to jot down a phone number or email address. As I said before, we are always open at the police department. If you have questions or concerns, feel free to reach out. Please stop in. If you see officers out on the road or in the community, don't be shy. Don't hesitate to say hello. If they're not, actively involved in a case, of course, please don't interrupt them on a traffic stop or something. But, if you see them doing their park walk and talk, if they're riding the bike, if they're buying a cup of coffee, they're getting lunch, say hi, wave. Officers like nothing more than to chat for a few minutes with a resident of the community, answer questions, things of that nature. We're here for the community. We're here for the borough, and we're proud of that. And thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your Thursday evening with us. And I hope to see you all again soon. I don't know if Mayor or Councilwoman Foster wants to close.
Well, yeah, Elsie, you can say something. I just have one thing to add at the end.
Oh, I just want to thank everyone for coming out and, being on the line and to listening to what we have to say, and for submitting the questions. The questions were excellent that you submitted, and I think the answers that was provided was informative. And you all had an opportunity, which we haven't done, I don't think we've ever done, for you to see the underworkings of the department and to see some of the officers that is employed at the Highland Park Police Department, and for you to have their contact information so you can reach out to them at any given time. So if you do have questions, concerns, please don't be bashful. The numbers are there. Reach out to them via phone or via email, or as they say, stop and say hello. And for anyone in the community that have concerns, they feel, you know, that they have an open door policy where you can reach out to the officers and voice your concern, or reach out to the PD through the website, and let any concerns that you may have be known. And again, I just want to thank the members of the Highland Park Police Department and thank all the members of the public that participated tonight. And with that, I say good night and be safe.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much for coming tonight. I just want to iterate the open invitation from the chief and the captain to contact them. If you had questions we could not get to because of time tonight, you can feel free to email them, call them. Several of you have stopped by to talk with them. We are on a journey together here with the new chief and captain and the governing body and all of our residents to make our police department the best police department, at least in New Jersey. And it takes all of us working together to make that happen. So thank you all very much and have a safe and good evening. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Safe.